All right, so last before the main event, we have Mr. Tom Pitts, road dog of Mr. Joe Clifford. This says, Tom Pitts received his education on the streets of San Francisco. He remains there working, writing, and trying to survive. Good luck with that these days, bro. His new novel, Hustle, and his novella, Piggyback, are available from Snubnose Press. Find more of his work at tompittsauthor.com. So now, representing the Dog Patch Winos, Mr. Tom Pitts.
I wanted to stick with the theme, not of parasites, but of family. And so I dug through the short stories, and believe me, the well is rather shallow. So this is what I came up with. It's a story called Vigil. And let me just turn to page 1. Flip. Pretend I'm actually reading off a paper since I'm in a bookstore. All right, Vigil. The room looked sterile, smelled sterile. It had that piney scent of disinfectant. Oh, hang on a second. Can't see the damn thing. It had that piney scent of disinfectant. The light strained through the window, stale and yellow as the old man's skin. And John looked at his grandfather and felt nothing. He barely knew the man, what was left of the man. John's grandfather lay with his head back and his mouth open, feeding tubes snaked up each nostril. There were wires and more tubes fitted to an obsolete piece of medical machinery that beeped softly every few seconds. There was an awful wheeze coming from his mouth, the awful dry oval that housed his stained teeth and swollen tongue thickly coated with something white. It was the sound of what John knew to be a dying man. John hadn't seen his grandfather's face in 3 years. He'd been off biding time at boarding school. His mother had stuck him in, out of sight, out of mind. And John didn't recognize him when he first entered the hospital room. He thought the frail, withered shell in front of him bore no resemblance to the man he'd known to be the strong patriarch of his family, the hero of his mother's stories. John spied an uncomfortable-looking chair near the window and decided that if he could sit quietly, the hour his mother had designated for him to bond with the old man would tick by painlessly. He sat down, and the chair creaked loudly. The old man stirred. At first, there was a raspy groan, and John hoped he was still asleep, lost in some lusty memory of yesteryear. But then he heard the old man's voice. "Who's there?" the old man said, barely audible. "It's me, Grandpa, Johnny." "Giovanni, is that you?" "Yeah, it's me." "Come here, boy, let me see you." As Johnny got up, the chair squeaked again, and he stood between the window and the bed, casting a shadow over the man, like death itself. "Christ, Giovanni, I can't see you. Come closer." He leaned over the old man and let his grandfather's eyes adjust to the light. "Sit down, boy," and he patted a brown-spotted hand on the hospital blanket beside him. "Sit down and let me talk with you." John sat down and got a closer look at the old man. A Sunday dinner never went by without some sort of talk about Grandpa Joe, no matter what his family was doing, how well, how poorly. No subject ever passed without some comment on what Grandpa Joe might think. A new job, a move from the city, a marriage, a divorce. The first thought on all their minds was, what was Grandpa Joe going to say? "Gio, you look good. What are you now, 24, 25? 19, John said. 19? What an age. What I wouldn't give to be 19 again. "It's overrated," John said. "Bullshit. I didn't know shit when I was 19. I thought I knew everything, but I didn't know shit." "Mom would agree with you." "Your mother? Are you kidding? She still doesn't know shit." John smiled, but the old man just stared straight ahead, his eyes watery and opaque. "Kid, let me ask you something." John waited a moment. "What, Grandpa?" "You got any money?" John didn't know how to answer this. Money in his pocket? His life savings? What was the old man, asking for a loan? "No, Grandpa, not really." "Never use your own money, kid. Investment-wise, doesn't matter if it's legit or not. Don't use your own dough." John didn't really know where this was going. "I made a lot of scratch, kid. You know how? Using other people's dough. And I still got buckets, too. Buckets. You know what else? Those vultures in the waiting room out there, they ain't gonna get it. None of it. You'll see. Fuck 'em. That's a promise." This made John smile, too. He'd never heard his grandfather talk this way. He thought of his own mother out there, with her cousins, 2 aunts, and assorted fringe family members, all hunkered down in a somber vigil. each and every one of them with dollar signs in their eyes. Okay, Grandpa, John smiled, but the old man didn't. He looked angry, mean. John wondered if some of the rumors about him were true. And another thing, Gio. The old man paused to catch his breath, and there was a quiet gurgling sound in the feeder tubes. Don't ever let nothing walk past. John was confused. He looked at his grandfather, and their eyes met. I'm talking about broads, kid. If you can lay it, then lay it down. No point in looking back on lost opportunities with just your dick in your hands. I passed on too many. Forget what kind of trouble it could have caused. I should have tasted them all. The door to the room opened, and a young Asian nurse walked into the room. She smiled. How are we doing, Mr. Carboni? It's time for your medicine. The old man ignored the nurse and reached out and grabbed John's wrist. See, Gio, this is what I'm talking about. The nurse produced a syringe and stuck it into the IV leading to the old man's right arm. She was smiling, beautiful, very professional. Her gleaming white grin, practiced and well used. It had probably extended more lives than the chemotherapy she administered. This may make you a little drowsy, Mr. Carboni. Is your visitor staying much longer? As long as he goddamn wants, sweetheart. This is my grandson, Giovanni. He's going to be a welterweight champ someday. Say hello, Gio. John nodded to the young nurse. Sure, he was blushing. He'd never been in a boxing ring his whole life. The nurse ignored John and playfully shook her head at the old man. Instead of checking the data on the machine in the corner, she took Grandpa Joe by the wrist to check his heart rate and pressed her fingers lightly on his forehead. Grandpa Joe seemed to like the personal touch. Okay, Mr. Carboni, you need to get some rest. You two should wrap it up. 20 more minutes, then I'll come back to check on you. And without another word, she left the room, taking all that sexual energy with her. What I wouldn't give to be 19 again, the old man said as he stared at the pale green door she'd exited through. A silence filled the void. How are you feeling, Grandpa? Fuck how I'm feeling. You kidding me? I'm dying, kid. I feel like shit. John didn't know what to say. It wasn't his fault the old man was sick. I'm sorry, kid. I'm just pissed it's all going to end. There was more gurgling through the tubes, and the old man's head fell back onto the pillow. Whatever the nurse had given him was taking effect. Gio, promise me. Don't ever be ashamed. No regrets. That's the key. No regrets. Oh, okay, Grandpa. You ever have any regrets? The old man's eyes opened just a crack. Like the song says, kid. Regrets. I've had a few. John played along and said, too few to mention? A few, kid, a few. He seemed to drift off again, and John thought it was a good time to sneak out of the room, but just as he got up off the bed, the old man reached out and grabbed his hand. The Mexicans. I don't feel too good about that. You know, we used to run this town, kid. You couldn't snort a line of blow without me getting a nickel. Those were the days. Grandpa? But the shit fucked up our boys. Couldn't keep their hands out of the cookie jar. Turned them into women. John didn't say anything. The old man was still talking with his eyes closed. So we switched to smack. Nobody was fucking with smack. Easier to keep the guys in line, but then it got so heavy. A lot of heat, believe me. So we let those fucking Mexicans in. Dumb. Dumb. Now look where we are. They're the ones that are earning. John couldn't believe what he was hearing. Most of his life, he was afraid of his family finding out that he'd smoked a joint. And here was Grandpa Joe confessing to being a drug dealer. His mother never told him any of this shit. No one did. His aunts and cousins had to have known. Restaurateur my ass. Maybe you should get some rest, Grandpa. The old man ignored the boy. Fucking Joey Tang. Fuck him. He deserved everything he got. Bobby Ciro, too. Fuck them. I'll see them in hell. John was getting more and more uncomfortable. The beeping from the machine picked up its tempo, and the old man opened his eyes. Did you know I used to be a mortician? Had a parlor on 7th Avenue. Yeah, didn't know that, did you? Cremated motherfuckers. Put their ashes out with the trash. No one ever knew. Beautiful. We'd charge friends. Disposal service. Made a lot of dough that way. Oh, I know what you're thinking, kid. But it was another time. No DNA, no Big Brother. There was a lot more room to wiggle. You know what I mean? John did definitely not know what he meant. After Blakey's Rico thing, I got wise, started stacking my cash, thinking I could get out. But you gotta keep a hand in, understand? Otherwise, the sharks, they keep circling. The old man stopped to cough. But you know it's a temperament. You can't hide from what you are. You know what I mean, kid, right? John shook his head. Fuck the good times. Those were the good times, damn it. The old man started to laugh, and it quickly degenerated into another coughing fit. John grabbed a glass of water from the stand beside the bed and offered it to him. The old man shook his head. Sometimes you can't let go, he said to the boy. You are what you are. Why are you telling me this, Grandpa? The old man started to sing with a voice that sounded like a car that wouldn't start. Regrets, I've had a few. And John felt like he was being teased. Grandpa, really, why are you telling me this? Your father, Gio. I thought he was no good. I thought he wasn't good enough for your mom. Honestly, I thought he was a piece of shit from the get-go. But I was wrong. It was your mother that wasn't worth a damn. And I never should have done what I'd done. Grandpa, what did you do? I did, the poor bastard. I had him taken outside at the parking lot at that furniture joint where he worked. 2 friends of mine grabbed him and beat him till he was never coming back. Then we took him to 7th Avenue and sent him on his way. Grandpa, John repeated, his eyes starting to tear at this point. Why are you telling me this? I was wrong about him. He was only trying to do right by you and your mother. I couldn't let go of my own shit. I thought she deserved better, but she didn't deserve shit. John sat silent, stupefied. He was hurt. It felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Everything he knew about his life had been turned upside down, and the old man let go of John's wrist. He stood up to face his grandfather. Why? How could you do something like that? The old man drifted off again, swept away in the arms of Morpheus. Grandpa! Grandpa, said John. The old man opened his eyes, looking irritated that the boy was still there. Smarten up, boy, and don't ask questions that you don't want to hear the answer to. Grandpa Joe's head fell backward onto the pillow, and he was out like a light. Thank you for your patience.